It is just a huge honor today to be sitting in my home with Dr. Eric Neufang. Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for inviting me.
When I was looking at your name, I'm the dentist. I should be Neufang, and you should be Ferran. So I think we went into the wrong profession.
We swapped them, yes.
Dr. Neufang graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from LeMoyne College in Syracuse, New York, and received his Doctorate of Chiropractic from New York Chiropractic College in 1996. We've practiced, my office has been here 30 years. He's right across the street from me for 10 years.
For the last 10 years, yes.
After graduation, Dr. Neufang was the first chiropractor to work with a MD-based urgent care center in all of Central New York. At that time, he was a clinical instructor for the outpatient center at New York Chiropractic College, where he directed NYCC students during their residency programs. Dr. Neufang treats workers' compensation injuries, personal injuries, sports-related trauma, headaches, strain, sprain injuries, disc herniation, and pregnancy-related back pain. He has been asked to give expert testimony for workers' compensation and personal injury cases. Dr. Neufang also has performed independent medical evaluations and record reviews for many of the country's leading insurance carriers. Thank you so much for coming over today.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I thought it'd be... I thought it'd really be neat, and to have, categories like police, fire, teachers, doctors. And I thought it'd be really neat for these people to be on their iPhone and get to meet the doctors that, every morning when the light turns red at 48th and Elliott, those cars are backed up in front of your office. And so many people look over that office wondering who's in there.
Yeah.
And
so... The signage definitely could be better over there.
So where were you born and raised?
Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No. So you're born in Syracuse, and how did you end up getting all the way to Ahwatukee?
The short answer to that is 300 days of sunshine a year. Most people don't know this, but Syracuse actually has more rainfall than Portland or Seattle. We get more snowfall than Anchorage, Alaska, or Buffalo. So if you grew up in Syracuse, you don't see the sun an awful lot. So to come to Arizona and have the beautiful weather that we have here is a huge draw.
Now, is Syracuse on the Erie Canal?
Parts of it, yes. The Erie Canal did go through Syracuse. Actually, my father grew up right across the street from the Erie Canal. I
think the coolest thing, the American, we have all these museums and all that stuff. That Erie Canal was like the biggest economic development of its time.
It was a huge boom.
I think they should fire that thing back up with tourist boats.
Yeah.
I think so many Americans, if you could say, okay, a ship's docking here. The whole Industrial Revolution started with the combustible machine.
Yep.
And it was so big, the only thing it was used for in England was to suck the water out of the coal mines that got flooded so they could go back there and mine again. But everything always gets faster, easier, higher quality, lower price, and smaller. And when they finally got small enough, they put them on boats.
Yep.
And then when they got to America, they wanted to cut across that land to the Great Lakes.
Well, several of the locks are actually still in place. So if you have a small boat, you can actually go from the St. Lawrence River all the way through the Great Lakes and through some of the Erie Canal. So
really?
You can actually still do that, yeah.
Wow, I think that region is beautiful. And where's that one city, Ryan, where Ivaclair is? Amherst, New York?
Okay.
Is that next to Syracuse?
It's not too far from Syracuse.
Like how far?
A couple hours.
Oh, what's it a suburb of? Is it Buffalo?
Amherst is a suburb of Buffalo. So Buffalo to Syracuse is about a 2-hour drive.
Well, if you're a dentist, you love Buffalo because they got the University of Buffalo Dental School.
Yep.
But then the largest dental company in America is in Amherst.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's like 100-year-old company. The greatest dental stuff comes out of there. So where on your journey in Syracuse, where were you at on your journey when you decided you wanted to be a doctor?
So actually, we'll take a step back, and my journey as far as chiropractic goes, when I was 4 years old, I was hit by a car. It was my fault. I ran across the street and fractured every bone on the right side of my face. I fractured my spine. I fractured my leg. I had a concussion. Wasn't supposed to make it through the first night. Miraculously, day after day, month after month, got a little bit better, to the point that I finally was discharged from the hospital. But at the time, the best orthopedic surgeon and the best neurologist in Syracuse came to my parents and said, he'll never walk again. If he does, it'll be with crutches. My parents at the time, in the early 70s, did not accept that answer and did an irrational thing at the time and decided to take me to a chiropractor. And I still remember as a kid going to my follow-ups to the orthopedic surgeon and being told by my parents, don't tell him we're taking you to a chiropractor. and I would get better, and I would get better, and I'd get better, to the point that I played football and baseball in high school. To this day, you know, am able to ambulate around without any difficulties whatsoever. So after graduating high school and kind of had that lightning bolt that all kids at 18, 19 should have, what am I going to do the rest of my life? I decided to go into pre-med and basically take my, you know, get my biology degree so that I could become a chiropractor and hopefully someday give back to the profession that gave me so much.
And why did your mom say don't tell him you're taking him to a chiropractor?
Well, at the time, again, it was, 40 years ago, so it was a lot different environment than it is now. But obviously the medical profession, the chiropractic profession at that time really did not see eye to eye. And I don't think at the time she wanted to get the lecture from the ortho that don't take your kid to a chiropractor. Now, what's interesting is, fast forward to 35 years after the fact, I worked hand in hand with an orthopedic surgeon in Scottsdale, Arizona. I actually I came to Ahwatukee, left Ahwatukee for a couple of years, and worked with an orthopedic surgeon in Scottsdale, and that's how far both professions have come in such a short duration of time.
I think one of the greatest books ever was, I think it came out in 1984. It was The History of the American Medical Industry by Paul Starr. He got a Pulitzer Prize for it.
Yep.
But he talks about the journey. I mean, going back to the beginning of the country, there were osteopaths and homeopaths.
So, to the best of my recollection, chiropractic basically is about 120 years old. And the individual that is credited for founding chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, lived very close to Andrew Stills, who is the founder of osteopathic medicine. So a lot of the ideas were shared, similar.
What was his name?
Andrew Stills.
Andrew Stills.
Yep. And in about the 1930s, the American Medical Association, the MDs basically came to both professions and said, to be in our group, we essentially want you to adopt minor surgery and adopt, you know, kind of what we're doing. One group decided to do that, the other group decided not to do that. And that was basically the break at that time from medical professions and chiropractors in the 30s.
So the DOs decided to follow the MDs?
Correct.
Now the MDs, were those the osteopaths? Or
the osteopaths
were they
grew out of the DOs.
The DOs. What were the MDs called?
Just again, at the time, you know,
I thought it was something that ended in path.
Well, historically, and again, historically, if you go back to the 19th century, basically people were just hanging. Even, you know, Doc Holliday was a dentist. Probably had no formal training whatsoever, but at the time, people were just putting shingles outside of their doors saying, "I'm a doctor." So it really took to the 20th century that things really started to become more and more regulated.
Yeah, he's our most famous dentist. You got to go down to Tombstone. Doc Holliday. I stood in the cemetery where I think he killed the whole row.
I've been in Boot Hill. I've been in that same cemetery.
That's a hell of a dentist, man.
Yeah.
You can, and I guess that whole OK Corral shooting, the whole thing lasted like a minute.
Well, the amazing thing with the OK Corral was that, you know, in the movies it looks as if they're far apart. When the shooting actually started, they were only about 18 inches apart, 30 inches apart. So they were as close as you and I are right now when that shooting all started. You
know, I'll tell you, it's my favorite vacation in Arizona. You go to Tombstone, and Bisbee's about a mile above the ground.
Bisbee's
it's always nice and cool. And then they got that mining tour. Yep. But the thing that's so weird about Bisbee is if you look into it, between when they discovered gold in San Francisco, between St. Louis and San Francisco, Bisbee was the largest town.
Really?
It was a silver mine, and when you go in there, you have to realize, okay, you got to go back to the 49ers. You got to go back to 1849, because you're sitting in this bar, and it's, you know, 50 yards long, and all the exquisite stuff. And if you realize the timepiece that was made, I mean, that was the Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It was opulent wealth.
Yeah, it was a booming town.
I stayed in that hotel, and I just think it's so cool.
Yeah.
And the mining tour where they were finding all that money, the silver and all that stuff. I mean, it was just great. You know, the one thing I've been a dentist for 30 years, and the one thing I see is that the millennial, I mean the baby boomers, you go to the doctor and you say, well, you need a root canal, and they say, well, you're the doctor. 30 years later, the millennials are like, I know you're a doctor, but I'm going to search this on Google for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're becoming far more holistic. Like the elderly people, I mean, they're a lot of times they're taking 5 different prescriptions, and you're going over their health history. They don't even know why they're taking them. Mm-hmm. And then you look at you try to watch the news. The news is a joke because the first half hour is all these advertisements for prescriptions,
yeah.
And then the last half hour is all these law firms suing the prescription people. So it's like you watch all these prescriptions with all these side effects, and you watch all these law firms class action lawsuit against all these pills, and the millennials ain't dumb. They're like they read about polyphagia by the time an American is on 5 prescription pills, your statistical chance of remaining healthy just plummets. I mean, it's crazy. So, going back to chiropractic, I remember listening to Senator McCain speak one time, and he was saying we got to get the chiropractors need to be covered, because if we send them to an orthopedic surgeon, they're going to spend $50,000 doing surgery and fusing their spine, and 5 years later, a lot of those patients aren't very happy. And if we send them to a chiropractor, they're not going to do surgery, and it's going to be a lot less expensive. And it seems like you guys had better 5-year follow-ups than the guys getting all the fusion. Do you agree with what I said, or disagree?
No, I agree to
I mean, I'm a dentist. I'm a dentist talking about your profession, so take it all with a grain of salt.
You know, what you said, statistically, there are studies all over the country and all over the globe as far as workers' comp goes, as far as chiropractors saving money. In the grand scheme of things, they really do in the healthcare program. The issue is, I think that in the medical field, in the healthcare field, everyone has their little niche. And if someone needs to be on medications, they need to be on medications. If someone needs surgery, they need to have surgery. But if someone can get treated conservatively, then that would be the way to go. And usually how I approach things is treat conservatively for a couple of weeks. If they're not getting better, I have a great referral here in Ahwatukee. I refer to a great pain management doctor. We have great...
Who's that guy?
I use Wes Crisp at Ahwatukee Sports and Spine.
Can you send him here?
I will try and get
That'd
him
be
over
a great
here.
follow-up.
Yeah, he's a great guy, phenomenal doctor.
But this is Ahwatukee Uncensored, so I'm gonna ask you a tough question. When you say they need medications, they need surgeries, they need surgery, I get that. But I read studies that we just passed 7.5 billion humans on Earth, and America's 232 million people are 5% of the planet's population, and take half the prescription pills. And then I look at our cesarean section rate. I mean, it's like 4 times greater than countries that make a lot better cars than us. I mean, Germany makes Porsche and Mercedes and Volvo. We make Chevy.
Yeah.
So why do they remove what? So I just wanted to say, here's my general specific question.
So
do you think Americans are over medicated and over surgeried?
Yes and no. I think that again, I'll go back to there's a time and place. I'll give you a great example, and I'll go to my specialty, the spine. If someone has a disc herniation and they develop foot drop is a neurological disorder. It's basically showing the practitioner that the nerve is completely occluded, and once that occurs, there's nothing that's going to fix that short of surgery.
What's occluded mean?
So basically, the nerve is completely being shut off. It's being pinched off by the disc herniation. Okay. Once that occurs, the longer that goes without having surgery, the greater the probability is that it'll never come back. So that's a patient that needs surgery. The issue was 30 years ago, 25 years ago, a patient goes into an orthopedic surgeon's with low back pain, and all of a sudden they're having surgery for no reason. So I think that, again, I've been in practice long enough that I've seen those numbers decrease. I've seen a lot of orthopedic surgeons, especially in this town, be very conservative with care. They'll try certain medications that decrease inflammation. They'll try physical therapy. They'll try chiropractic. They'll try pain management with transforaminal injections, so like steroid injections. And if those all fail, then that patient has surgery.
Now, when you say the steroid injection, is that the traditional cortisone shot?
Nope. A transforaminal injection basically is made up of a medication called Medrol, which is a corticosteroid. So again, physiologically, what it's designed to do is decrease inflammation within that area. So you can take a prednisone pill and it goes throughout your whole body, or you can have this injection which hits the area that's actually being inflamed.
Nice. So I imagine a lot of people are wondering, we right now we're not in Tokyo or Paris or London. We're in Ahwatukee. Mm-hmm. What do you see? What's your patient base? What is your like at a dental office we do cleanings, exams, X-rays, fillings. What are you seeing for the last 10 years? What's your daily?
It's a mix, which certainly makes practice a lot of fun. We see some sports injuries, we see car accidents, we see pregnancy patients. Being in the
By the way, I'm not pregnant. I know you thought I'm in my ninth month.
Being in the location that you and I are in, we treat a lot of geriatric patients, so a lot of Medicare patients.
Okay, so sports injuries.
Sports injuries, a lot of auto accidents.
Auto accidents?
Pregnancy-related, low back pain and headaches. Geriatric patients. I would rather treat, you give me one entity to treat, I'd rather treat migraines all day and twice on Sunday. Just from the success rate alone. Well,
most people with migraines say nothing will touch it.
It's because they haven't tried a chiropractor. Sadly, as a profession...
But don't you hear that the most?
Absolutely.
When they have a migraine, they say, I lose 2 days' work. And I say, well, what do you take for that? And they go, dude, just to ask that question, you don't get it. There's nothing will touch a migraine.
That's why I would pick that over any entity. Because sadly, as a profession, we only treat about 6% of the population.
For migraines?
In general. We only treat 6% of the entire U.S. population.
So chiropractors only treat. So only 6% of Americans go to a chiropractor.
Correct.
And your favorite thing would be migraines all day and on Saturday and Sunday?
Because, again, you're dealing with patients that have chronic pain. They've been debilitating. They've tried everything under the sun for it, and nothing seems to help. They go to a chiropractor, and all of a sudden the migraines get better.
Okay, so first of all, explain what is a migraine, what causes it, and then how do you treat it?
So migraine can be triggered by a lot of things, and again, that falls on that initial consultation and examination. Is it really cervicogenic, so is it caused from your neck, or is it environmental, is it chemical, is it something that you're eating that's triggering the migraine? So you have to diagnose what's going on first and foremost. A lot of times, if it's cervicogenic, manual manipulations or using an instrument tool that chiropractors utilize helps free up any type of joint restrictions in the neck and helps decrease the inflammation in the area and hence helps them with their migraines.
Nice. And does that do that in one visit, or do you see them every day during the acute stage?
There's absolutely no recipe. So I've never put patients on type of treatment plans. I don't know how you're going to feel in a week from now. I don't know how you're going to feel tomorrow.
How long do you think a migraine usually lasts?
As far as the treatment goes?
Well, when someone gets a migraine, how long are they missing work?
Typically with a migraine, it usually hits them for a few hours, and then after about a day or so, it starts to go away.
A day or so?
Yep.
So I've heard this before. I don't know if it's true or not, but do women get migraines more than men?
Yes. Yep.
Typically. Like what ratio? Or
off the top of my head, I don't know, but typically women do have more headaches than men.
And do you know why that would be? Because in dentistry, 30 years ago, we used to think that women got TMJ more than men. And so it really threw all the research off because they were thinking, oh, we're going to chase down their estrogen and progesterone, and it's got to be a hormone. It's got to be a woman hormone.
And that can trigger migraine, so that could be one of the answers as far as why women would have.
But when the epidemiologists studied it for a really long time, they realized that men had just as much TMJ as the women, but men just never asked for help. Yeah. And when women have a problem, they'll raise their hand and they'll go get help. Like I have a friend who's the emergency room physician. You know, the average man lives 5 years less than the average woman. Men are 74, women are 79.
Yep.
And these emergency room guys just like, Grandpa will come in and he'll have had black diarrhea for a year. And you're like,
why didn't you say something sooner?
You know, why? He said Grandma would put up with that for 2 or 3 days and think, I better tell someone. Yeah. Grandpa's just like, just is what it is.
And that's a quintessential patient in our office and always has been. Women typically will, I feel like something's coming on, I want to nip it in the bud now, where guys will come in crawling on all fours, they can't stand up, they need help getting out of the vehicle because they can't move and they're completely in spasm. Usually men typically will wait till the very last minute.
I know. I remember when we'd be on vacation, my 5 sisters in the station wagon, my dad would be so lost, but he couldn't ask for directions.
Yeah.
And we'd all be begging him, can't we just stop at the filling station and ask someone? Oh, I'll find it. Oh, yeah, they just don't get help, and that's why
now we have phones that direct us. So.
I want to go to sports injuries. Is that usually only kids in high school? Is it grammar school? Is it weekend warriors trying to be...
Mostly weekend warriors.
Mostly weekend. I would have guessed Desert Vista and Mountain Point.
Mostly. Well,
would have been all your sports.
We get a little bit from the high schools here. But mostly weekend warriors. Every now and then you get a professional athlete that comes in. And again, sprain, strain injuries, neck, shoulder, low back.
So talk about what is the most weekend warrior activity that's making people end up at the doctor's office?
I probably see more stuff, probably more softball, soccer-related injuries. Things
wow, that is so amazing. I always thought being a dentist for 30 years was so weird that your contact sports like football never generate a tooth problem because they're all wearing helmets and mouthpieces. But the non-contact basketball and softball, oh my God! And in my 30 years, it's the co-ed teams. So you got little 40-year-old mom that weighs 100 pounds, and she got some 6'5" huge man throwing the pitch, and knocks her front tooth out.
Well, you'd be amazed statistically. What sport do you think has more concussions than anyone else?
Football.
Soccer.
Soccer
does. And again, not supposed to be a contact sport, but headbutting, things of that nature cause a lot of concussions.
It's so bizarre because, like, in boxing, the way you would prevent all the injuries is you would take the gloves off.
Yeah.
Because a man will not go to a brick wall and punch it as hard as he can.
Yeah.
But you put a 16-ounce glove on, he'll...
Increases it.
So why would humans be protecting the hands instead of his head? And if they had no gloves on, you wouldn't be punching a head as hard as you can, or you break your hand. Your hand would break before your head.
More nociceptors are in our fingers, so nociceptors sense noxious stimuli, so we feel pain more in our fingers than we do our head. So if you think of concussions, you don't really feel it right away. It's a long-term effect that you feel it, whereas your hands, you feel it right away, so it hurts right away. So that's the short answer to why you protect your hands over your head. Not the smartest thing in the world.
And then the other one that's so silly is the number one sport in the entire world times 10 is soccer, because it's the lowest cost. I mean, you can't go to a poor country and set up ice hockey.
No.
And gymnastics, and a football uniform is $100 a person. So you just need a ball. And I've had so much fun. I've been to dental conferences in Brazil and Kathmandu in India where the kids are all barefoot, and their famous soccer star that they idolize, they just write it on their skin with a piece of charcoal and maybe the name on it. I saw a little kid who had Pele written on him in Brazil. But again, they're not allowed to use their hands, and they're just sitting there with this soccer ball all day long, and you think to yourself, with everything they're talking about in the NFL, I mean, again, even in the NFL, the only reason they tackle like that with their head is because they have a helmet on.
Yeah.
If you took the helmet off, it'd be rugby. They wouldn't do that. You took the gloves off, the boxers wouldn't have a concussion. And getting soccer to say we're no longer going to use our head, but we're going to use our hands, I mean, that would be like changing their religion.
Yeah, it would.
That'd be like going to Brazil and say, okay, now y'all got to be Hindu.
Yeah. But again, that's usually most people's answer because of the media drive for football and concussions. In concussion protocol, you don't really think of how many concussions there really are in soccer. And everyone in Ahwatukee has their kids playing soccer and really not thinking about that.
But I can tell you there are professional football players in Ahwatukee that are retired that won't let their kids play football.
Yeah.
And I think it's the little kids in flag football today that'll be playing at ASU and U of A and the Cardinals in 20 years, and you're already seeing a massive decrease in the, what would you call it, the farming aspect of it?
Just the participation, it has been decreasing. Yeah,
I think that's going to be different. So you, sports injuries, I can't read, auto accidents, gosh. Have any more intersections been the causes in Ahwatukee been more likely to cause someone coming in from an auto accident?
I don't know a certain. I know it's a little outside of Ahwatukee, but Ray and Kyrene seems to have an auto accident once a week.
And Ray and 48th.
Yeah. It just,
Ray and Kyrene and Ray.
Ray and Kyrene and Ray and 48th seem to be bad intersections.
And I sent an email to the Arizona Department of Transportation. I said to him, if my dental office killed 1/10 as many, if it killed one person,
you'd be out of business.
I'd be out of business. Yeah. Yet your civil engineers know that when you have a 4-lane intersection and you develop commercially 2 sides and the other 2 sides you put apartment buildings, that the number of accidents plummets because everybody is only looking one way. But when they design and they put a major development on all 4 corners with this big old they know that intersection is going to kill someone and maim someone regularly. And it's like, and then I then say, well, come on the show. Let's talk about fatalities and we don't do that.
Well,
how nice the government doesn't do that. You kill people routinely in Ahwatukee, and you can't even come and talk about it.
Yeah. I don't think anyone in Ahwatukee likes the I-10 and 60 interchange there either.
I-10 and 60 superstition.
Yeah, so I-10 going westbound towards the airport, and when 60 comes in, you've got to get over 3 or 4 lanes.
I just want to know this. How many people have died at 48th and Ray, and then compare that into Ahwatukee and the other intersections where they didn't develop all 4 corners, they developed 3 or 2. Like you go down to Ranch Circle and Ray Road, I've never seen a wreck there.
Yeah, I haven't.
But you go to 40s, and these are reasons I wanted to start Tukeetown, because the media can't afford, with the number of people subscribing to the Arizona Republic going on, they can't afford to put beat journalists in. They're going to all the city council and all that stuff like that. So the cheapest, fastest news is just to cover the president, Putin, Trump, all this stuff like that. It reminds me of when we were little. When I was real little, my 5 sisters, their favorite show was Big Bonanza and the Big Valley and the Brady Bunch. But these were very expensive shows with 50 people and writers. And then as Merv Griffin came along and said, who's got time for that? I'm just going to come out with game shows where I got one guy and The Price is Right or The Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, and who made the most money. And
Merv Griffin
he became a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the media companies are publicly traded, so they're like, well, we don't want to have a bunch of employees and a bunch of journalists and driving around and staying in hotels. Let's just get some talking head to talk their opinion on something cheap. And so that's why I would maybe if you work for the Arizona Department of Transportation, you can tell them, come on, it's fair game. I don't know why we can't have a discussion on mortality rates. I mean, it leads to people needing care in your office. I've had so many people over the years where they lost all their front teeth. I mean, they're nasty.
I don't know the statistic now. I know when I first moved here in 2003, there were 46 accidents a day in the city of Phoenix. 46
in the city of Phoenix.
In the city of Phoenix. So that was 14 years ago. And obviously there's 1 million more people now than there was, 1.5 million more now than there was 14 years ago. So that number probably has doubled.
Yeah, we had the guy on the show who was the original founder of the burrito company.
Yeah, I actually saw that one.
And when he was born, I think he was 72. When he was born, Phoenix had 66,000 people. Yeah. And now it has 1.4 million. I thought, man, that is just some amazing girls. So pregnancy, lower back pain, just one more reason not to have a child?
It can be helped and regulated through chiropractic, which is nice. In Syracuse, as you so eloquently read in the beginning, my practice actually was in a medical center, and my upstairs neighbor was an OBGYN with 20,000 active patients. So I treated...
In Ahwatukee?
No, back in Syracuse.
Oh, in Syracuse.
So when I first got out of school, I treated a lot of pregnant patients, literally from conception to delivery. I treated everything in between for them. And again, when you're pregnant, you shouldn't be taking medications. You have to be very careful with, what you're taking, what you're doing. So chiropractic fits in perfect for any type of pregnancy pain, whether it's low back pain, whether it's headaches again.
Because it's non-pharmaceutical.
Yep.
And you got a developing baby.
It's not detrimental to the baby in any shape, way.
And the next was geriatric, but I want to tie them both together. There's a lot of commercials that make you think that, if you're waking up and your back hurts and your neck hurts and all that, maybe you need a Tempur-Pedic bed, or maybe you need, there's special pillows where I see them at night where I can buy the pillow, get one free, and if it doesn't make my pain, so do you think the bed is a big source of a long-term chronic bad thing, and they need to get a better bed?
Absolutely. I don't think you need to go out and get all the gimmicks that are out there. Studies have been done by the Better Sleep Institute that basically show that if you have any type of back pain whatsoever, a medium firmness bed is what you need.
Medium firm.
You don't want anything too soft. You don't want anything too hard.
I read this in the Goldilocks book.
Yes, and that's exactly, and that's what I call it in my office. It's the Goldilocks Syndrome. You need something right in the middle that basically is perfect for you. So anything that has good support, so any Posturepedic mattress with medium firmness would be perfectly fine. The trick is, no matter how much money you spend, every 5 years, it's time to get a new mattress.
Every 5 years?
Yep. So I don't care if you go out and spend $4,000 on the top of the line Stearns & Foster. After 5 years...
Is that the top of the line, Stearns & Foster's?
It's one of the best mattresses out there.
They want to know, what do you sleep on?
Stearns & Foster.
Stearns & Foster. I've never even heard of Stearns & Foster's. So do we have a Stearns & Foster's store in Ahwatukee? Or?
They sell them at just about every mattress place around.
And that's neat, because I'm going to get the podiatrist on here, because I was very, very surprised when I started having foot problems that some of the biggest brands are ones they don't like at all.
Yeah.
So you like Stearns & Foster? Yeah,
I'm not a fan of Tempur-Pedic, just for the fact.
Wow.
Yep. And again, if you think of the material, so if you take a deformity and you put it into that material, it doesn't correct the deformity. It basically adheres around it, which makes it comfortable for people. But it's actually not helping and correcting anything. So, again, it's just a personal preference. I'm not a huge fan.
Well, you're not going to get cookies at Christmas from Tempur-Pedic. So Stearns & Foster, and what would a bed like that? If that's top of the line, what's a top of the line bed cost?
And again, I'm not getting paid by Stearns & Foster. Serta, any of the major name brands are perfectly fine.
Stearns & Foster's your top choice. Serta would be the second?
Serta's certainly good.
Is that C-E-R-T-A?
S-E-R.
S-E-R-T-A?
Yep.
And what would a Stearns & Foster's bed cost?
King-size bed, you're probably looking at $1,500 to $1,800, give or take.
And is that, do you recommend the mattress and the box spring?
Yes.
And your second choice would be Serta?
Serta is a good mattress.
Any other brands you like?
King Coil, I don't know how well you can find that out.
I think it's interesting that now I'm seeing, everything's getting, the middleman's getting destroyed in everything, and now I'm reading that you can get a mattress direct. You can buy a mattress online.
So I actually just had someone about a month ago tell me about this company called the Purple Bed. Literally the color of it is purple, and he said he has spent tens of thousands of dollars on mattresses over the years, and this is the best mattress he's ever slept on. So I don't know much about it, but again, it's exactly what you just described. You basically order it online, and it gets shipped right to your house, and there's no middleman whatsoever.
I would say that the number one problem with healthcare is availability, accessibility. Basically everyone has to go work 9 to 5, and that's when all the doctors are open.
Yeah.
So what do you think about your hours and access to care issues, availability to care issues?
I've always been open till 6 o'clock at night. So again, if people get off work at 5, they can try and get there at 6. In the past, actually when I first started, I was open till 7 o'clock at night. But usually by that time, people want to be home. People want to be having dinner. They don't want to be out having their doctor's appointments. We opened up for 6 straight years. I was open on Saturday mornings. Again, just for the availability of patients. Got a little burned out with 6 years straight of doing that.
Right.
Cut it down to every other Saturday, and recently we've just decided to cut Saturdays out, just to give me 2 days off in a row.
Yeah.
But yes, try to be open and available.
When I opened up in '87, I was so young and dumb and full of energy. My hours were, for the first decade, 7 to 7, Monday through Saturday. And then you turn into a burned out, tired, fried soul.
Yeah.
And you need to spend more time with your kids. And but yeah, what about insurance?
We accept just about every insurance under the sun. So Medicare to Blue Cross, to United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, just about everything. Now,
can I ask you a real controversial question on Ahwatukee Uncensored?
Sure.
And I'm gonna ask him, and I'm not gonna opine on it, but I've been to 50 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is not controversial in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, France. I mean, the whole world, it's a non-issue. It's such an issue in the United States. I mean, it seems like healthcare. It's almost like it's. Do you agree with that? I mean, like right now we're living through. I mean, Obamacare. How many times they tried to repeal it? I think they're trying to repeal it right now as we speak.
Yeah.
Why do you think healthcare is so emotional and controversial?
It's big business, plain and simple.
Money's the answer. What's the question?
Money's the quick answer to that. I've been in practice long enough. When I first started, there basically was 4 types of insurance. You had an indemnity insurance, which basically covered you 100%. You had an HMO, which you had a $5 copay. You had Medicare, or you had workers' comp, and that was it. Now, fast forward.
Wait, you forgot. You said Medicare. What about Medicaid?
And I never accepted Medicaid. Medicaid never covered chiropractic.
Oh, okay.
So for me personally, those were the 4.
And the difference between Medicare and Medicaid: Medicare is a federal program, whereas Medicaid is a state program.
Correct.
So Medicaid at the state level never covered.
I believe right now they cover maybe 1 visit a year, and they pay like $5. Again, it's just economically not feasible to even have me treat Medicaid. Now fast forward 20 years, Blue Cross Blue Shield has 50 type of plans. United Healthcare has 50 type of plans. It's become so arduous and time consuming for the office staff to basically verify someone's insurance, find out what's covered, what isn't covered, what your copay is, what your deductible is, what coinsurance is. It's drastically changed over 20 years. I've had my brother's an optometrist in England, so I'm very firmly aware of universal health care, and there's certainly a lot of pros and cons with that as well. On paper, it sounds great, but in theory, not really so great.
What I don't want to get into politics, religion, sex, or violence, but the one thing that I always was frustrated with the government is like Obamacare, when they said no pre-existing conditions. That was so sweet. I had 4 boys right now. I got Eric, Greg, Ryan, and Zach. They're 28, 26, 24, 22. They could stay on my policy.
Yeah.
Love that. But when you look at what you just said, where 1/3 of the cost to have health care, like my dental office, is pushing paper. We have to call every one of those companies. And I just wish that, I just think they would have done their job better if they said, okay, we're going to cover these nice things, but we're going to offset the cost of that with getting rid of just stupid overhead. I mean, sometimes I feel like my dental office is more a paper pushing accounting firm than a dental office, because you can do the filling in 25 minutes. The paperwork might take an hour.
And sadly, you and I.
I mean, do you agree with that?
100%. You and I decided, when each of us decided to be doctors, you decided, I want to help people. I want to go into a profession where I can actually make a difference and change people's health care. And it went from that to, well, now I have to be a business person, to now I have to be an administrator and have to do a lot of paperwork and have to watch over this department, watch over that, and do this and do that. And those are things that neither one of us really ever wanted to do. Yet you're kind of forced to do if you want to stay in business.
Imagine, just think of this. I mean, this is going to be the craziest thought you've ever heard of in your life. But imagine if Blue Cross and Blue Shield, United Concordia, imagine if you got insurance at work. It had an app on your phone, and when you came in, you just shined that on some barcode thing, and we instantly knew who you were and what it's covered. Instead of, well, you need to go back to work and go to your benefits lady and get the forms, and then if it's a man, he gets the wrong form at least half the time, and then people come in and say, well, no, I have insurance because I'm here, and it's like, well, I have to have a name, a number.
Or I'll go one step further. You actually call the insurance company to verify their benefits, and you get told the wrong information. So then the patient gets mad at you that, well, you told me it was this. That's not our responsibility. That's your responsibility as a patient to know your own health insurance.
I'll take that one step further and up you one. I have sat down with the patient and said, dude, it's insane. Called the same number 3 times in a row. With the same information, and every time the coverage was different. It's like if somebody could just solve that, then I mean, think of how much shorter you're in like hospital. Like every time you go to emergency room, okay, what is your name? What is your address? Why are you asking me my name and my address? I've come to this hospital for 30 years. Why don't you just have an app on your phone and they say, oh, there's Howard. There's all his insurance. It's all updated. And then that would take the triage appointment from 20 minutes to 1. But it's really a paperwork insanity, isn't it? Yeah. I got another question for you. Sure. I hate to catch you on the spot, but what if some little girl's watching right now and she goes to Mountain Point or Desert Vista and says, I've thought about it. I've always wanted to be a chiropractor. Could she ever come mentor you for a day? Could she ever come observe?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. I'd love to do that. That's one of the things that I enjoyed most, and again, you went over a little bit of my background in the beginning, was the ability to be able to teach. And one of the things that I got the most joy out of that was taking someone that wanted to be a chiropractor and trying to teach them the right way of doing things. And having them, that light bulb go off and basically go out into the real world and do what they should do and not what they shouldn't do. And those are the little things that I thoroughly enjoyed with teaching.
So if she was a little freshman at Mountain Point, or what year were you, man? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior?
I think freshman's a little too early just because I don't think you really know what you want to do as a freshman or sophomore. Usually by a junior or senior, that light bulb is slowly flickering, that what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And, if you like sciences, because it's a lot of science in school, if that's something that you want to do and you want to actually see what chiropractors do, I'd be more happy and open to that.
So my dad owned a Sonic drive-in, like the one we have here on Chandler and 48th Street about. And he wanted me to follow him. Dad wanted me to go into Sonic Drive-In and get a franchise and us be Sonic buddies. But my next door neighbor was Kenny Anderson, the dentist. And I go to work with my dad, the love of my life, but we'd make cheeseburgers and french fries and onion rings. And then I go to work with Kenny Anderson, and people would come in pain, and you'd get them out of pain. And I remember telling my dad in the 6th grade, I want to be a dentist.
There's no greater reward than that, is there?
And I just celebrated my 30-year anniversary. I think he passed his 50 longer ago that he still practices. So I'm 55. I think I don't know how old he is. He's got to be at least 65, 75.
Yeah.
75 to 80. And I have a dentist friend in Los Angeles and St. Joe, those two cities, St. Joe, Missouri and Los Angeles, California. 92-year-old dentist.
Wow.
In fact, the 92-year-old dentist in Los Angeles, he thinks he's the only survivor of Auschwitz. He can't find anyone else. So my question to you is, how long are you going to be doing this when you're 92 in Ahwatukee?
That's actually a running joke, because I have said that, my retirement plan, what retirement plan? I can keep doing this, I love what I do for a living, so as long as I'm physically able to do it, I certainly would love the practice and love to treat patients.
So what are my Ahwatukee homies going to find on your website, activehealthaz.com? Active Health AZ. And where did that name come from, Active Health? What does Active Health mean?
So when I purchased the practice 10 years ago, it was called State-of-the-Art Chiropractic. And about 6-7 years ago, we added physical therapy to the practice. So we needed to do a name change. And again, going back to sports-related injuries and keeping people active and getting people back to an active lifestyle, that's where the name Active Health essentially was born out of. The website is very informative. It breaks down, what we do in the office, what entities we treat, insurances that we cover, our hours, etc.
Nice. I think we've talked about everything. Is there any questions I missed or should have asked?
One of the things that separates the office a little bit different than other offices in Ahwatukee is we obviously do traditional manual manipulations, but one of the things that we do use is a 21st century computerized instrument that's an adjusting instrument called the Impulse IQ. It's very fast, very effective, and very non-invasive. So again, for little kids all the way to your 92, 95-year-old adults, we can treat them, and there's no detriment to them, there's no harm to them, there's no side effects. It's a great tool to have in the office. And again, for patients that are a little apprehensive to go to a chiropractor, it's a great way of treating them. You
and I, being right at 48th and Allied across from Safeway, our area is really a retirement community.
It is.
So do you see a lot of retired people?
Probably about a third of my practice.
Yeah.
Is probably
do they have any? What's unique about them being retired snowbirds versus someone that goes to Desert Vista?
Well, one of the amazing things that I have seen is, again, practicing on the East Coast and practicing here, and I think a lot of it has to do with our weather. Is I have patients that are 90 plus, 85 plus, that are still very active, still drive themselves. I'm sure you do as well. Still live at home by themselves. They're not shut-ins, where you don't see that on the East Coast. You don't see that activity of 85 plus being that healthy and that vibrant. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not shut in and they're actually able to go out and do things, which is huge for them.
I was wondering, you've been doing this, how many years have you been a chiropractor?
21 years.
21 years. Do you see a difference in your treatment mix? I mean, 20 years ago versus today, when it used to be everybody was a welder, they worked construction, they had physical jobs. Now so many people sit in cubicles all day, and their head's on here, and they got a mouse, and you've heard of things like carpal tunnel. Have you seen a different... Texting,
doing this.
Have you seen different diseases in this post-industrial revolution where everybody's on a computer?
With millennials, so it's called upper cross syndrome, and it's basically rounded shoulders and a forward head carriage, and we're seeing more and more and more of that, and we will continue to see more of that because of the amount of computer work, because of texting, because of video games. Kids now sit there and do this, with their Xbox all day long. Those are things that we're seeing more and more of.
And back to sleep, one thing I want to talk, he was talking about, what was the name of that? Stearns and Foster? Stearns and Foster. I'd never heard of that. I made it 55 laps around the sun without hearing that one. But it's one thing to have a really nice Stearns and Foster, but it's also a really nice thing to turn your phone off and leave it in another room and turn your TV off.
Yeah.
And, I know so many people who are miserable because their dog sleeps with them and he's up barking at ghosts 3 times a night. Well, who cares if you're on a Stearns and Foster? If you're sleeping with your dog, he should not be in your bedroom. Your phone shouldn't be in the bedroom. And when you read any article on sleep apnea, they say man, the first thing you got to do is get to sleep hygiene. Go in a cold, dark room with no electronic devices. And you know what another really big taboo is with senior citizens? One thing they don't want to talk about, but like 40% of them do. Through trial and error, they've realized they feel a lot better sleeping in separate rooms.
Yeah.
But if you go to work and tell people, oh yeah, me and my wife, we sleep in separate rooms, people are thinking, yeah, is there a problem? Or, oh, so you guys don't make love anymore? But the bottom line is, you should be in a cold, dark room with no noises, no lights, no beeping, no television, and then you have better sleep.
And you don't want that stimulus right before bed. So watching the news, which again elderly people do right before they go to bed. You usually watch the 10 o'clock news and then you go to bed, but that gets your mind basically racing. And again, those things shouldn't be done statistically right before bed. Yeah, so right before they go to bed, they go turn on the news and hear that North Korea is going to kill us with a missile and Putin's hacked the internet. And to tell you like 20 horrible things and then say, you're shocked that you don't get a good night's sleep.
Good night, sleep good. Yeah. It's like, so what do you think the wind down period? How long do you think that should be, and what should that not include?
Again, every study basically says read something. Don't look at your phones. Don't look at just the visualization of the colors of the TV and the phone can stimulate you. Put that stuff away for a good 45 minutes before you go to sleep, and you should get a better night's sleep.
And I'm going to tell you another great thing about your profession. I know a lot of seniors. I just know a lot of patients over 30 years that they went in and they got lower back surgery. They got treated for their pain with surgery, and then they got addicted to opioids. And that was just a nightmare.
Yep.
Sometimes for 2 years, sometimes for 4 years. It took a lot of people a long time to get off. Some now are switching. The doctor won't give them any more refills, so they switch to heroin.
It's the number one drug problem right now in the United States. It's not cocaine. It's not marijuana. It's opioids. It basically is Percocet, OxyContin. Again, going back to what we discussed, there's a time and place for that. If someone's in acute distress and they're in immense neurogenic type pain and nothing is taking it away, that's what those medications should be used for. The problem is, going back to 10 years ago, you had a lot of physicians, instead of giving them 40 pills, they were giving them 160 pills. So you never ran out. You kept getting refills. They've done a great job over the last 10 years attempting to try and regulate that. But again, that's where chiropractic basically steps in for chronic pain patients, trying to take that pain away without having to go that route.
Ryan, yes. What's the name of that new medical marijuana dispensary on? Sunflower. So what is right on Elliott. So one of the things that's changed since you and I got here is now there's a medical marijuana dispensary, and a lot of people don't listen to their doctor. They listen to their friends, their buddy at work, their cousin Eddie. And he says, the best thing for chronic pain is marijuana. And they always talk about great medicinal purposes. What would you say to someone who's thinking, maybe I should treat my pain with medical marijuana?
I would try other things first, and if all else fails, again, I have seen patients that it's helped. I've also seen patients that are abusing it, just from the standpoint of saying that I have this or that just because they want their medical marijuana card. And that's the issue that I do have with it. But for those people, especially Parkinson's patients, it's phenomenal for Parkinson's patients. There is a niche in the medical field for medical marijuana. It just needs to be the right people that are actually getting it.
And I saw one deal where for edibles, you don't have to smoke it, you can eat it.
Yep.
That for autistic children who go and they're excited by the lights or the noises or whatever, kind of calms them down.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies out there that do prove its efficacy. It's weird because, again, when we were kids growing up, we never would have thought in a million years that medical marijuana would be prescribed.
It was really weird because, like, when I went to college at Creighton in Omaha, Nebraska, they drank beer or whiskey, it was all good.
Yeah.
If someone smoked pot, it was a criminal that needs to go to jail.
Yeah.
And I always called baloney on that because when I lived in dorms for a lot of years, and what I always said with boys is that if there, there were 88 boys on each floor of this Swanson Hall dorm, and I was on the 9th floor. If a bunch of boys started drinking beer, they all wanted to leave and go find girls at dance bars and all that. If they started, if they didn't drink beer, but they started bringing in the whiskey, the Jack Daniels, the Wild Turkey, the tequila, it was fist fights and broken things and damaged.
Yeah.
And then the ones that would smoke pot, they stayed in their dorm room, ordered Domino's, and watched a movie.
Yeah.
And after several year after, I think by the end of junior year, I remember talking to one of the Jesuit priests, and I said, if it just makes total sense that in this university, pot should be free, tequila and whiskey should be banned at all levels, and you can't bring it in here for any reason.
Yeah.
And beer's kind of a crazy, but my gosh, it sure seems in managing a herd of college boys in a dorm, whiskey, Jack Daniels, that was just that was the craziest stuff.
It's definitely very interesting times.
Yeah, we do live in strange times. What's that old saying? May you live in interesting times.
We are right now, absolutely.
I just want to thank you. I've been a big fan of yours for a decade. I've had many patients that speak highly of you, and it was just an honor and a privilege that you come by and talk to your fellow Ahwatukee homies for an hour and explain to them chiropractic care. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
It was an honor.